Okay. I was having technical difficulties. My Wi-Fi seemed to not be connecting, so I had to log out and log back in. So here we are, another live, and today we are talking about how things that we do to make people lose respect for us. And I have 6 things that if you are used to putting other people first in your life and always putting yourself on the back burner, these 6 things might resonate with you. If you can hear me, you're here. If you can just put in the chat that you can hear me, that I'm live, that you're on board with me, and we are going to go into these 6 things. Let me put something in the chat. People lose respect for you when you do these 6 things. Oh, I see a thumbs up. Perfect. So let's get right into it. If you were raised to not hurt other people's feelings, to be nice, to be good, to get along, to go along, or is that the right saying? Go along to get along. I don't know if I'm saying that right. If you were taught to go with the flow, right? And maybe to not speak up, not not show your emotions, then you probably grew into an adult that developed some habits or continued with some habits that were developed when you were young. We people pleased when we were young, primarily to keep us safe, to keep us um, in the family unit, to keep us protected, right? That's a given. But when we were told to, uh, or when we were taught, maybe subliminally, that we had to be a certain way, act a certain way, do certain things, then we probably developed these people pleasing habits that then followed us into adulthood. And unless we look at them and examine them, we probably don't even see that they're there. And I've said before in other lives, and by the way, I go live every Wednesday at 1:11 Central Time, or a little bit after if I have technical difficulties, but every Wednesday. And you can come in, ask your questions about what we're talking about, or any questions that you have about where you're stuck in your life, right? This is a way for you to get support. If I can't answer the question fully, if it's like a really big question, then I may do it in a future live, like cover it more fully, more deeply. And I've done that already in a past live where someone asked me a question that deserved to dive deeper into it. And it was a really great live. So if you have questions about maybe you feel disrespected in your life by your boss or coworkers or family members, friends, your partner, put it in the chat. Let me know what's happening in your life. And I'm going to give you 6 habits basically, and everything we do in our life. 95% of what we do is a habit. Tell me something today that you've done that wasn't a habit. Maybe coming on here and listening to me, right, is not a habit of yours. So I'll give you that. But what other things have you done, right? You get up, you brush your teeth, you go to the bathroom, maybe you take a shower, you dress, maybe you go work out, right? Those are all habits. You probably eat the same thing for breakfast. For me, I have butter in my coffee and along with protein powder in my coffee. I know it sounds really weird, but that's my breakfast. That's my habit every day, right? And so our lives are just a series of habits. So maybe you have some of these habits that I'm going to list, 6 things that people pleasers do even when they're recovering, right? I still catch myself sometimes falling into these traps. So I'm going to go over those. The first one is to stop explaining yourself, right? When we say something that we think maybe the other person won't like, how many times do we follow what we say with an explanation? Or maybe we preface what we're going to say with an explanation. But when we explain ourselves, we are subliminally telling ourselves, our subconscious, the unconscious mind, that we aren't worthy of just saying no or just speaking our truth. And so we end up explaining ourselves, and we think that explaining ourselves will get us off the hook, or it will make them not get upset, right? What do you explain yourself? Do you catch yourself saying, I can't come because blah, 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 right? I have to take my cousin to the airport. And we go into this long explanation that isn't needed, right? So when we explain ourselves, we're basically shrinking. And many times we are saying that if I follow up a boundary or a no, which is a boundary. But if I follow up why I can't make it to happy hour with an explanation, it basically is sending a subliminal message to the other person also, not only to our own subconscious, is that we think we have to justify our actions, but we're also sending to the other person that we don't feel confident in our own decisions, or we don't feel uh, comfortable. We don't we feel less than, right? And we feel sometimes like a burden. And so if we think that if we explain ourselves, that that will help diminish that feeling, but it actually accentuates it. It actually increases it. Owl Feather said, my problem with over explaining is people can take something a million different ways and make assumptions. I found it less confusing and problem creating. Uh, is there more there I'm not seeing? You found it less confusing and problem creating if you don't explain. If that's what you're saying, that's exactly right. Right? When we don't explain, okay, you weren't done oh, because you get cut off with like 100 characters or something in the chat, I think. To explain first, then to say the thing to create less drama. So you explain first and then you say the thing. The bottom line is we don't owe anyone an explanation, right? And the one of the other habits that we have is, now I lost my, oh, that we teach people how to treat us. So when you offer an explanation, which is very, very rarely needed, right? You don't have to explain or justify your truth or your actions, why you're doing what you're doing. And so if you have been in the habit of offering an explanation, people get used to that, right? They come to expect it from you. And then maybe when you don't offer it, they might think you're hiding something because you've always offered an explanation in the past. So it will take a little time to get over that hurdle of of not explaining, because what happens again is that explaining it's basically causing us in our subconscious to diminish ourselves, and your subconscious can only do, remember, what it was programmed to do. And so when we explain ourselves, we are further deepening that programming that we don't think we're valid to say no or to do whatever we're doing without an explanation. I hope that helps clarify that. So remember that no is a complete sentence and that you don't have to justify anything that you're doing. So Owl Feather said again, if I don't explain why I'm saying something, I've been faced with so many people teaming things taking things completely out of context or personal or way wrong, and then we have an issue, which is frustrating. It is frustrating. But one of the next things I'm going to go into is that by you explaining, you are taking on responsibility for how they feel, how they act, how they respond to you, right? And by explaining, have has it ever been where you haven't explained and what do I want to say? So let me read what you said again. If I don't explain why I'm saying something, I've been faced with so many people taking things completely out of context or personal or way wrong. Again, let's just go to that next point. Trying to manage their emotions, solving their problems. That is not your responsibility. If they take it out of context, again, and that goes to that you're teaching them how to treat you. So by explaining, you think that you can control them not taking it out of context. You can't, right? And an explanation again just diminishes your own power because your subconscious again thinks that you have to explain yourself in order to prevent them from taking it out of context. If they're going to take it out of context, they're going to take it out of context regardless of whether you explain or not. So I would invite you to the next time you have something to say or you act in a way that you think someone else is going to be uncomfortable, just do the thing, say the thing without an explanation and see what happens. There if someone is hell-bent on taking something out of context and twisting your words around, twisting your actions around, they are going to do that regardless of whether you explain yourself or not. And I think this is what I was going to say before. I'm curious to know when you explain and they take it out of context anyway, and then you have to further explain, does it eventually get to a place where it feels resolved? Or do you walk away thinking, I can't believe I have to explain myself? Why do I have to explain this common courtesy to a grown adult, right? So I would invite you to experiment, right? Life is an experiment. When we can go into things with the mindset that I'm just going to be a scientist, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try it a couple times. My hypothesis is X, Y, and Z, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try speaking my truth succinctly, quickly, without explanation, and see what happens. I encourage you to do that. A lot of times we explain to keep ourselves comfortable because we don't want to sit in the discomfort of them possibly taking it out of context, right? Of them being hurt, of them being um disappointed or angry at what we're saying. And so we explain in order to try and avoid that discomfort. But that again is us trying to control how they react, how they respond. And that is not, we are not put here on earth to diminish ourselves in order to keep other people comfortable or to keep ourselves comfortable. So I hope that I hope that helps you, and I would love to know, Owl Feather, like, what happens when you experiment and try this out and not don't explain yourself, and maybe try it out in a lower stakes, situation first, right? And then move on to if you have people in your life that you feel maybe are trying to control you by making you explain yourself, don't try it out with them first. Try it out in lower stakes situations first and see how you feel. See if you can work through the discomfort. It will be uncomfortable at first. I can tell you that because we're so used to being complacent and placating, keeping other people happy, keeping them comfortable, keeping them out of their discomfort, right? That then we feel guilty because we feel like we're doing something wrong. So thank you so much for um, putting that in the chat and helping further this conversation. And in the Rockies said, I'm learning to say I'm not responsible for their negative thinking. That's exactly right. And Owl Feather said that makes sense. Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you again for putting that in the chat because you are not the only one to be thinking this, right? It- when we are raised this way to put other people first, to put ourselves on the back burner, we have developed a lot of habits. So let's go into the next one. That was stop explaining yourself. The next habit is, which this kind of goes along with the first one, is apologizing. Stop apologizing all the time, right? Maybe you say, I'm sorry, but I need to tell you this, right? And then you tell them that, and then you offer an explanation. We don't owe people apologies for things that we haven't done wrong. Speaking our truth, acting in ways that aren't hurtful, but that are what we need to do for our own well being, doing things for myself, taking time for myself, doing self care for myself, right? Going off on so my ex husband did not like he basically forbid me to spend time away from him. If I wanted to go on a girls' weekend, it was a fight. It was a big, big deal. He was, I learned, very controlling, and that's partially why the marriage only lasted 10 months because it came out in full force as soon as we basically said I do. And so I up until that point, I didn't recognize I'm not sure where that thought came from. I lost my train of thought, but I didn't recognize how diminishing it was for me to put myself oh, that's what it was. We were taught, right, to put ourselves on the back burner. And so I attracted this man into my life that I ended up having to submit myself to basically, right? Be less than because I didn't want the retaliation. I didn't want the guilt trips. I didn't want it became emotionally abusive. And so he started, um, calling me names, calling me selfish. He started accusing me of having an affair with someone else. And quite frankly, I don't know how I could have had an affair when he was basically in control of my time 95%, 97% of my day. If I wasn't at work, I was almost always with him. So long story to get to, we end up apologizing a lot in our lives for things that we didn't do wrong. It's not wrong for me to want time to myself. It's not wrong of you to want time away with your girlfriends. It's not wrong for you. I had someone that I had a consultation call with to see what was going on in her life, to see how I could help her, how I could support her. And her husband was forbidding her to do her painting. She was an artist in their house. And she was also, because he controlled the finances, she was also basically afraid to go get a studio, to rent a studio for herself so that she could do one of her life's loves, right? And I helped her. Oh, it gives me goosebumps. I helped her break free from that, and she went out and rented a studio for a year. And it was right, she was able in a moment. It he This healing, this breaking free from people pleasing doesn't have to take a lifetime. It doesn't have to take months or years. It can be in a moment where you see, and I just got goosebumps again, where you see, oh my gosh, and you draw a line in the sand and you're like, no more. No more apologizing for myself. But I'm talking even about little apologies that we make. You get to the grocery store door at the same time as someone, and you're like, who's going to go through first? And you start apologizing. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Go ahead. Right? Why am I apologizing for taking up space? It's almost like we apologize for existing. And so I really, again, I invite you to start looking at how often you say sorry when you did absolutely nothing wrong. But all of these sorries, just like explaining yourself, they all go into the subconscious mind. And we're deepening that program that we are less than, that we have to diminish ourselves for other people. And you are no less than. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So let me read the comments here. Owl Feather said yes, but they were narcissistic. Exactly. And recently those relationships go. They would twist everything and get angry. Right. There is no making sense with a narcissist, right? They will word salad you. They will do everything they can for you to take the blame. And unfortunately, we are the type of people that we were raised to take on everything, right? The other person shouldn't be disappointed. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want, so we learn to not speak our truth. But doing that, and again, that's another point on here, doing that attracts narcissistic people. It attracts toxic people. It attracts people that know that they can take advantage of you and take control. And that's part of their MO, is targeting people. And if you look back on that relationship at the beginning, you can probably see things just like I can with my ex, things that they did or said that you didn't realize in the moment, but they were feeling out how good were your boundaries, right? How much were you going to stand up for yourself? How often did you actually speak up, or did you just shut down? Did they get you to shut down and stay quiet? And that belittling and those little um what's the word, where they knock you down, they start to, what's the word? I can't think of it, but they start to knock you down in little ways, right? They start to dismantle you. And because at first, right, they've put you on a pedestal probably, and then they start to chip away at your confidence, at little things, to make you believe that you need them in your life in order to be safe or to feel loved or to be approved of or to be valued, right? They do that on purpose. It's not it's not purposeless. It is very purposeful for that type of person, because that is their supply. That is where you are like food to them, right? You are like their sustenance. You are what keeps them alive by feeding feeding that ego, feeding um that narcissistic person. You are fuel to them. Let's see what we have to say here. In the Rockies, I'm learning to say I'm not responsible for their negative thinking. Okay, we did that already. But they were narcissistic, right? So, owl feather, I hope recently you said you let those relationships go. They would twist everything and get angry. Now the thing is to know what how you were stepping into that, right? How what responsibility you had for attracting those relationships into your life and healing those things, figuring out I went to Codependence Anonymous for 3 years and I finally figured out, right? What happens is it's not about necessarily it is about changing our behaviors, right? To start not explaining ourselves, to stop apologizing for ourselves. But it's very, very difficult to do that. And I speak from experience without looking at the beliefs that you have about yourself, right? So our beliefs are what drive our behaviors. Our behaviors don't create our beliefs. The things that happen in our life don't create our beliefs. Our beliefs are in our subconscious and they drive the behaviors. So if you have a behavior like me not being able to say no to people, especially people like men that I was dating or that I was in an intimate relationship with, me not being able to speak my mind wasn't a behavior that I could change without looking at the beliefs that I had about myself. So if and most of our beliefs are in our blind spot. So it's just like someone driving in your blind spot on the road, right? You can't do anything about them if you don't know they're there. So you can't change your beliefs about yourself and therefore change your behaviors unless you know what belief is driving that behavior or beliefs. So I encourage you, I invite you, if you want help with that, I offer a free consultation where we can dig into it a little bit. This isn't meant for coaching, right? It's a free consultation to see what you have going on in your life, to see how I can guide you further, to see what resources I have for you or that I can recommend for you that will help you break free because I lived this. I lived what I'm talking. I've experienced it. I've been in 3 marriages and all of them were me attracting that to me, right? They didn't necessarily do these things on purpose. I attracted it because of my people pleasing, because of me not standing up for myself, because of me thinking I had to explain everything, because of me apologizing for my place on earth, for my existence, for any behavior or thought that I had that they didn't that I thought maybe they didn't agree with, right? We learn to we're basically we end up becoming puppets in other people's lives. An analogy would be, say you're creating a video or a movie about your life, right? But you put yourself in this video, you cast yourself as a sidekick in your own video, right? So you are the ride or die person for everybody else in the video in your life. You're on screen all the time, but it's in a supporting role. And the story revolves around everyone else in your life. You meeting their needs, you meeting their requests, you meeting their expectations, and you are just a supporting role. That is how people pleasers show up in the world as a supporting role in their own movie of their life. And so I'm here to help you start living as the actress, the actor that you are in your own life. The main character, you're the main character. You're creating the scene, right? But as a people pleaser, you're letting everybody else create all of the scenes in the movie. So that was a great analogy that I thought of that I just love thinking of it that way. Like, do I want to be a supporting actor my whole life? right? I did that for 55 years. I don't want to do that anymore. So I encourage you, I invite you to look at your life in that way. And in what way are you just being a support to other people versus actually living your life, your purpose? You weren't put here to be a supporting role. You were put here to be the star of your movie. And everybody, that doesn't make you better than, it doesn't make you less than. It makes you what your divine purpose is here. Everyone's divine purpose is to be their own star in their life. That is how we allow the divine, the message to live through us by being who we were put here to be. And I guarantee you, whatever your belief is, whether it's God or the universe or divine, whatever, divine energy, you were not put here to be a supporting role only. You were put here to be the main actor in your life. And that is the best way that you live a life of purpose and of serving other people, is to come from a place of wholeness to begin with versus you only being whole when you live as a supporting role. So I hope that makes sense. Let's see who's here. So, Owl, I will try your way from now on. I truly appreciate your advice, listening and taking notes. Thank you, Owl Feather. Yeah, I again, going back to your narcissistic comment, I've lived it. I've been there. Mac, thanks for being here. He says, so good. Heidi attracts manipulative people. Absolutely. Supply. They love to play the victim. They absolutely do. In the Rockies, you have helped me so much. Okay, let's go on to the other habits, because I have a few more and we've touched on some of them. So stop apologizing, right? Stop explaining yourself. Stop apologizing. Stop seeking approval. We've already talked about this, right? If you look at it as external validation, right? Looking outside of you, if you're the supporting role, if that's what you're playing, right? You're going to look to other people to tell you who you are, to tell you what's right, to tell you what's okay, what's not okay. But again, you didn't do this. You didn't become a people pleaser on purpose. You did it because you were programmed, you were conditioned to believe that that's who you needed to be when you grew up. And so all of these things become programmed in the subconscious mind and they become habitual. They become who you think you are. I don't know how many times women in particular have told me it's just who I am. I like to help. And helping and serving are not the same thing. So stop seeking external validation. And I like to think of external validation as just a sugar rush. It whatever you eat, I had a hankering last night for caramels, and I bought an apple and I bought a couple of chocolate covered caramel peanut clusters. And I told myself I was only eat one a day, right? So I only ate one of those, but I also bought some dark chocolate covered, they were like caramel thingies. I'd never seen them before. And I ate many more than I should have, right? So it gives you that sugar rush. And that is what external validation's like. It's this sugar rush. It feels good in the moment for someone to validate you, to approve of you, to clap for you, to applaud for you, right? But it doesn't last. It goes away really quickly. And then you get habituated to feeling that rush, that then it's like, oh geez, I need another sugar hit, right? And so then you seek more external validation in order to feel that dopamine rush again. And that's what it is. And that's with narcissists, we end up getting hormonally attached to them. So we get triggered then when we don't get that validation from them. And so it ends up becoming this magnetic relationship that we need them because we got addicted to the dopamine, to that serotonin, all of that, those good feeling hormones that we get from being validated. And they're addicted to us because we are putting them on a pedestal. They're the best thing since sliced bread. They treat me so well, right at the beginning. And then we get addicted to it. And then when we realize, oh crap, this is not this is not the relationship I want, we have a really hard time breaking free because we are chemically in our body, we are chemically addicted to them, just like a drug, just like alcohol, like a drug, morphine or not morphine, heroin, cocaine. We get addicted to that narcissistic abuse almost. And that's why I've said in the past that people pleasing is actually an addiction because we get addicted to the feel good hormones that are put out in our body when we get the external validation, when we yeah, just when we get that approval from outside of us. So we have to learn that all of that has to come from within ourselves first. We have to be strong enough to know that I am worthy just for existing. I am worthy just for being born. There is nothing I have to do or say or prove to anyone else ever in order to be worthy. We are worthy just for existing. So that external validation, I invite you to look at how often are you seeking that sugar rush, that dopamine hit, that feel good thing from outside of you, right? Start giving it to yourself. Start celebrating when you experiment with not explaining yourself. You will start to get a dopamine rush from saying no. I guarantee it. You'll be like, yes, I did it. I did. I said no and I didn't explain myself. Maybe it's via a text. Maybe it's a phone call where someone is belittling you on the phone call. And you start saying, if you continue to talk to me that way, I'm going to hang up. And then they continue to talk to you that way and you hang up. Or if it's in person, if you continue to talk to me that way, I'm going to walk out of the room. They continue and you walk out of the room and then you go out of their sight and you're like, yes, you have to start celebrating breaking free of these things because it's not easy. I absolutely know it is not easy to start speaking up for yourself in a way that honors who you are and who you are put here to be in this world for yourself and for other people and for whatever you believe in. Again, if it's God, if it's the universe, if it's divine energy, whatever it is that you believe in, you were put here for a purpose. And you belittling yourself by putting yourself last or on the back burner is not you here living your purpose. So stop seeking approval. Stop staying silent. That is another habit that I got into. I was told to be nice. Here's the biggie. If you can't say anything nice, then don't say anything at all, right? So I started gauging because I didn't know what was nice, right? I was 5. How could I know what was necessarily nice to say or what wasn't nice to say? And so I started living by someone else's rules, what they told me was nice or not nice. And it's not nice to talk back. It's not nice to hurt someone's feelings. And therefore, I learned to not speak up for myself because it wasn't nice. And I thought that was a rule that I had to live by in order to be a good person. Hi, Dee Dee. I also found the let them theory by Mel Robbins helpful. Exactly. It backs up what you were saying about us not being responsible for other people's reactions. Exactly. And in the Rockies said, oh, I said that already. You've helped me so much. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you all commenting in the chat. It really helps keep the conversation going here instead of me feeling like I'm just talking to myself, talk amongst yourselves. That's what I feel like I'm doing. So, yeah, DD or DB, sorry about that, DB. Um, the let them theory, right, is just let them react, let them get mad, let them, let them walk away. Let them tell you that you're wrong, right? But don't let them belittle you. Do not let them blame you. Do not let them tell you that you're the problem and believe it, right? Do not let them continue to berate you and be condescending to you. Don't stand there and take it, right? I think I didn't read the book, but I know the theory. I don't know if she goes into this in the book deeply, but right, w- we're not here to tolerate other people abusing us. And we're not in mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually in any way, right? We're also not here to abuse ourselves. So standing in the face of someone belittling me, and I had a client who this was her main thing that she came to me first with. Her mother-in-law belittled her so much that and she thought it would be cowardly if she got up and walked out because that was what she was conditioned to believe. Don't walk away from me when I'm talking to you, right? So she sat there. She's a 60-plus-year-old woman. She sat there and took this belittling, and it was bad, calling her fat and ugly. And I don't know, why anyone would ever stay with you, and just really mean, diminishing, like very hurtful things. And my client would walk away and feel horrible about herself. Not horrible about what the mother-in-law was saying to her, but horrible about herself because she thought she was responsible for having a good relationship with her mother-in-law because it was family, and she thought she was responsible for the way her mother-in-law was talking to her. So she took on this as her own responsibility, and she blamed herself for the way her mother-in-law was treating her. And so we worked on that this is not you, right? The way other people treat you is not your responsibility. What is your responsibility is to stand up for yourself, to protect yourself, to have your own back. And if that means getting up and walking out, that is not cowardly. That is as courageous as you can get, right? Because it's not easy when your ego and your subconscious is telling you it's not safe to walk out, right? Because we were told, we were conditioned to believe as a kid, we couldn't walk away, right? Because maybe we would be punished. Maybe we would be rejected, right? Maybe we would be disowned and so, or belittled, right? But as a little kid, we didn't have the choice to walk away. And so we were conditioned to believe that it was wrong to walk away. But I am telling you, as an adult, that is not your responsibility. And we teach people how to treat us, yes, but we teach them by staying there, by not speaking up for ourselves. So you're not that little child anymore, right? Start having your own back. Start having your own agency. You are not the child who needs that adult to care for you anymore. You can be safe by walking away, by speaking up for yourself, by saying, if you continue to talk to me that way, I'm going to walk out of the room. You can say it or you don't have to. Again, you don't have to give an explanation. Let's see, what else do we have? Um In the Rockies said, "That's my problem with certain people. I don't want to argue, so I just close my mouth." Exactly, because you were conditioned to believe that. Arguing and speaking up for yourself are 2 different things. A lot of times, like, Owl Feather said, when you're dealing with a narcissist, there is no arguing with them, right? And arguing typically doesn't do anything anyway. There's a difference between arguing and speaking your truth, speaking what's true for you. You can speak what's true for you simply by saying, "That doesn't work for me." Someone that is disrespecting you most likely is going to push back against that, right? And they're going to say, "What do you mean that doesn't work for you?" To try and get you engaged and disengaged in a way, trying to get you off of your what you know to be true for yourself. A lot of times, though, when we grow up as people pleasers, we don't know what's true for ourselves. And so it takes figuring that out, right? It takes being willing to go inside and and go deep and maybe be uncomfortable with the truth that you've been tolerating someone emotionally abusing you for years. That isn't easy to see. I totally get it. Or maybe that you've been abusing yourself. Maybe your self talk has been so bad. Or maybe you've been abusing yourself with food, right? Overeating. All of those things are really hard to look at. They're not easy to admit because we feel shameful. I should have known better. I should be able to just do better. But we can't do better when our subconscious is programmed in the way that it was when we were young. We didn't have an analytical ability when we were young to be able to discern between what's true for me and what's not. So we took everything on as truth. And then we are living from that place now as adults. So, what time is it? Because, oh my goodness, I have an appointment. So the last thing that I want to say is to stop thinking that you're less than. And I don't know that I got to all 6. But stop thinking that you're less than. When we compare ourselves, that's disrespect to ourselves. And so stop thinking that you're less than because you are a worthy, valuable individual who was put here for a purpose. And your purpose is not to please other people, to be a supporting role in your own movie of your life. You are here to be the starring role in your movie of your life, just like everyone else is. So stop thinking that you're less than. And if you would like to dive into this deeper, I would love to have a call with you. Let's see what resources I have that I can offer you. I also have in the description of this video, I put a link to what's called a boundaries blind spot quiz. It's free. You can go in, it will tell you in 7 areas of your life where you might start looking first, right? On how you can change, how you can shift something in your life through speaking up for yourself, through not explaining yourself, through not apologizing, right? So go grab that quiz. It's free. Take it and then come back to the next live. I do a live every Wednesday at the same time. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time chatting with me. Um, oh, Pink Sparkly Juju said, withdrawing your energy can be super powerful. Yes, it can. It can be super powerful. So I think the chat stays open for 5 minutes or so after I end the live stream. Feel free to add more things in the chat or come back to the replay. And if you have more questions, put them in the comments of the replay. I would love to further this conversation in whatever way. If that's a free consultation call with me, that link is also in the description to put a call on my calendar. And I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same bat channel. Thank you so much for being here.